Hey, what is going on? In this tutorial, I'm going to be going over some tips that will help you to master your use of CSS. Many people, if you're like me, you may have learned CSS online or through reading books, and a lot of times it doesn't give you the the experience factor that you need. And I've worked with several different websites. I've worked on bigger projects, smaller projects. And one of the things that I've learned when dealing with CSS, or rather, this list is a list of things I've learned. The first thing I want to go over is to pick simple selectors first. That's the first thing I want to talk about is when you're styling your sheet, start with what's readily available to you instead of constantly creating new tags and new classes, new IDs, which a lot of people do that, and it's fine if you're able to manage it. But if you're just starting out, just pick the simple selectors first. Start with your paragraph tag, start with your HTML tag. A lot of people will skip over that one. But that's a great place to put a to put a background is in the HTML select using the HTML type selector. And use your simple selectors first. Start with your types, the things that are readily available. You don't have to start by making classes and I'm going to have a class for this and a class for that. And before you know it, you've got 30 different classes available to you, and you haven't even used the type selectors that you began with. So I definitely suggest that you start out using those tags first. Then that would be the type selectors. And remember, your type selectors in HTML are your basic ones like div, like the body tag. You see how there's no class, no ID attached to that? These are called type selectors. Nav. Now, when you attach an ID, the ID attribute, then now you're styling it. Remember, there's two selectors here that can be separate. You're actually targeting the nav, which is the type, and then you have the ID, which is main. So there's actually two selectors here. Remember that. Okay? So like when you're styling your classes, that was another thing, is like if you add a class to a document, or to an element on your HTML, then it's going to take the attributes of both the this type selector and the class. So honestly, it makes sense to start with that type selector. So if you know you want all your paragraphs to look a particular way, by default, then handle that. Make your paragraphs look that way you want them to look instead of adding a new class. So start with your type selectors and then build your classes, or excuse me, then build your IDs. Okay. For instance, in this document that we're working with here, we know we need a wrapper for a site, and that's going to be an individual one-off ID. We only need a one wrapper, so we're going to use the ID tag for, or the ID designation for that. And we only need one main menu, so there's only going to be one main menu. That's why we use IDs instead of classes. You use a class if you can use it over and over again, like this one here that says class equals test. I'm not sure what that's about, but it's somewhere back here in the CSS. Test is probably being, yeah, so test has probably some type of experiment I was doing with test. But as I said, start with your type selectors, then move on to your IDs, which is going to separate your document. Really, most of the time I use my IDs to chop up my document into sections. Then I add my classes later as I'm styling individual portions of it, that I decide, okay, I want the option of making this look a particular way or not, or moving something. As you can see here, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself in my bullets, but as you can see down here, these are some examples of classes I might use over and over when I'm assembling an HTML document. And as you can see here, I have a class called left. Its only purpose is to cause that element that I'm working in to float to the left. And these are classes. These are examples of classes that you might use when you're assembling your HTML. So sometimes, like, you're going to start with a basic template that you're building in HTML, and then you're going to apply styles to that. But sometimes when you're assembling that template, you may realize that this particular element you want it to do something, some type of behavior. So that's why you can use classes. That's a good way to use classes and to impose different styles on your selectors. So again, start with these. Start with your H1s and then say, okay, I want my headings to look like this. I want my paragraphs to look like this. I want my article, I want the background on my article to look like this. So utilize those type selectors first. I want my bullet points to look like this. I want to use Roman numerals. So get all of those individual elements styled first, then come back and apply classes. So like I said, pick simple selectors. The second step is learn new selectors. There are at least 11 to, I don't know, some people say there's over 100 selectors in CSS, but a lot of them kind of repeat the same patterns. It's just a different way of doing it. But there are at least 11 different selectors in CSS, and the whole reason you use these selectors is because in CSS you want to be as specific as possible. So if you want, let's say every time there's a paragraph tag and it's wrapping another paragraph tag, which you shouldn't do, but if you do that, then there's a selector that can select just that one particular occurrence where there's a paragraph within a paragraph, and so you want it to look this way. So there's all kinds of ways to manipulate that, and I'll probably do a tutorial just on selectors. And there's a website that you can go to. Actually, if you go to our website, which is, let's go to our website, and I'll show you where you can get that information. In the meanwhile, until I do that tutorial or until you find it online, you can go to the CSS. Is this one information stand? Let me make sure before I click. Yeah. And this one has all these selectors. This is over, you find this in our blog roll under official W3C CSS information. And this has all the selectors here. There they are, selectors. Okay. There are many different selectors. There's not just one. You have the attribute selector. You can select particular specific occurrences of a situation. This is the one I was talking about here, direct adjacent siblings. And use these, learn these, and I'm telling you, once you learn these, you'll say, oh my gosh, wow, this is so much easier. And your style sheets are going to get smaller and smaller because you're able to be more specific about the things that you want to go on with that document. And I'm telling you, it's going to get a lot easier as you go along and you learn these new selectors. So I'm going to do a tutorial on all the different selectors and how they work. Okay, I promise I'll get that done. But definitely spend some time, learn some new selectors. Don't just start with your basic 3. Most people stick with classes, IDs, and type selectors. That's it. And they might graduate on and learn how to manipulate the hover over links, but there are so many different ways to manipulate that document. Learn new selectors. The third tip is make effective use of classes and IDs, and I kind of went over that before. I'm not going to go back over it, but make effective use of those classes and IDs. Remember that classes are styles that you're applying to the document over and over and over again, and it's specific forced behaviors that you want to create in that document. So remember that. And an ID is identifying, it's like the highest level of specificity you can really get is by using an ID, because there's only allowed to be one ID per HTML page. So keep that in mind. Make effective use of your IDs and your classes. And when we go over the rules of specificity, which is tip number 8, learn those rules of specificity, then you'll understand better how to style your documents and how to go in and pinpoint things. Next, the fourth tip is use external style sheets as opposed to internal styles or inline CSS. When you've learned inline CSS, it's very tempting sometimes. You're working on a page. I'll just use this to create what I want, the look and feel I want right here. I don't really need to make an external style. I say no, don't do it. Okay? Find a way, make a class out of it, and put that class in your external style sheet. Every time we say that we only want to do this once, if you keep building on that site, you keep working, eventually you're going to find a need to do it more than once. Use that external style sheet. That is what makes CSS so powerful, because you've got that one style sheet and it's good for 1,000,000 pages on up. It doesn't matter. You can reuse it and reuse it and reuse it to keep your site looking consistent. So if you use an inline style, or if you're using internal styles just on one particular page, just throw a link in there and throw that code or that snippet into an external style sheet. Use them, trust me. Next one is constantly practice some of the newer CSS3 techniques. Yeah, learn some of that stuff in CSS3. CSS, we're currently still using CSS 2.1. You'll notice that the link that comes from the site goes to, wait, hold on, where'd it go? Index, I guess. Let's try that. All right, you'll notice, oh, cool. You'll notice that they're talking about 2.1, and then there's CSS 3. Now CSS 3 is not yet fully released. It's not fully released yet, so it's still sketchy. Not all the browsers supporting all the CSS 3 characteristics, but 2.1, you're good to go. So there are some websites that you can go to, and I'll probably put a list down in the description of a couple websites that actually do CSS 3. They show you how to use it. So there's some great blogs you can go check out that will show you how to use the CSS 3 selectors and the new elements that they have, like border radius. Those are really good. How to get those background images in the way you want. You can use more than one. That's been in since 2.1, but CSS 3 has some great, like you can have the backgrounds moving. So there's a lot of new elements that are there. So learn some of those newer selectors so you can be ahead of the curve. One second here. What else? Practice arranging and nesting your XHTML documents properly. Hey, your CSS layout begins by having properly arranged XHTML documents. Do your nesting correctly. Arrange them in the order that you want them to go. Think about your CSS when you're doing it, and the way you're going to do that is through tip number 7, which is plan your site layouts ahead of time using sketches and wireframe diagrams. So I'm going to have a tutorial just on how to build a quick wireframe type layout in Fireworks, and I might do one for InDesign. I might do one for that. Let me make sure I got that on this computer before I say that. One second. Okay, we'll use Illustrator. So I might do one in Illustrator as well, but definitely in Fireworks. I'll show you how you can make a quick layout and how you can use that to kind of get an idea of how you want your site to be set up, which is very important because that's where it all begins. How are you going to set that site up so it can look the way you want? And if you don't nest your HTML properties correctly, you're gonna have hell to pay when you're trying to style those things. Some things are gonna be out of order. You're gonna be trying to style a paragraph, but the paragraph is being styled up at the top, or it's being styled later in the document a different way because you're not utilizing the rules of specificity. So when we go over that in conjunction with like I said, practicing the nesting the HTML, you'll understand better how that works and how everything fits together it's a perfect flow between HTML and CSS. So if you have really jacked up HTML, you're gonna have hell to pay, like I said, when you're trying to arrange that CSS properly. So make sure that you're practicing good habits in your HTML when it comes to nesting and ordering your documents. You don't want to have to just absolutely position everything. That's sloppy, and from browser to browser, absolute positioning, you're going to see that sometimes it's going to suck. You're going to have certain issues that you're going to have when screen sizes change. So we definitely don't want to have to rely strictly on absolute positioning to get our documents where we want them to be. Okay. Number 8, learn the rules of specificity. And the rules of specificity, basically each type of selector, believe it or not, has a point value. And we're going to talk about the point value of selectors and learn those rules of specificity. The higher the point value is what's going to determine if that style is imposed where you want it to be. So we're going to talk about how you can use the rules of specificity so that you can accurately and very quickly go in, edit your document, and get out. Next, study the layouts of sites you enjoy visiting. Yeah, go to sites that you already like to visit and study their layouts. All right, that's an important step in mastery, is learning to imitate what you already see. You don't have to build everything from scratch, and that's one of my principles that I teach. You don't have to do everything from scratch. You can learn from other people's mistakes. Learn from my mistakes that I make. I still make mistakes. Learn from them and go to other sites. If you see a layout, look at it, study it. I mean, take a look at their CSS, and I showed you how to use the page source where you can go into the back here and you can take a look at how they laid this out. Now this is beautiful. Look at this. You see this? This is, and I wouldn't expect anything less from them. This is a beautiful example of what we're talking about here. Not too complicated. I mean, they've got stuff that they're using, but look, if you watch, they're using the same, pretty much the same material over and over. But as you move through the document, look at the smooth flow. Look at that. It's smooth. That's nice. I like that. Very nice. You see how they're utilizing just plain paragraph tags. They're not having a whole lot. Like, you can tell that they started with paragraph tags. They have a particular style. Go back here in the office. Let's see their style sheet. As you can see, there's multiple style sheets. Don't be afraid to use more than one. Okay. Yeah, don't be afraid to use more than one style sheet. I'll typically use 3 or 4. I don't care, because it's all about that load time, and we'll get to that in another tutorial talking about load times. Next thing is keep your CSS style sheets and layouts in a folder for future use and updating. Again, you're learning new styles, and keep a folder on your desktop or wherever you keep it in a secure place that will keep your layouts, so that every time you start working on a new project, you're not starting from scratch. You have something to begin with, something that has styles that you're accustomed to using, or it's already set up. If you've already spent the time to learn how to apply certain backgrounds to your documents, keep those code snippets. If you have Dreamweaver, you can store code snippets in Dreamweaver for future use, which I definitely condone doing that. So keep that code, and one of the rules you're going to learn when you're coding and you're doing websites is that a lazy coder is a good one. So by that, I just simply mean be lazy. Don't worry about, oh, well, I don't feel like it's custom if I'm reusing it. It's definitely custom, okay? Because you're going to be customizing all the different graphics. You're going to be customizing the flow. No two websites are going to be exactly the same, but don't start from scratch every single time you start a website. I really don't think you should have to do that. Keep some code with you. And the last rule is just never be afraid to try something new. If you have an idea and you're saying, man, I would like to see how that works out, try it. Try it. Don't be afraid to try that new thing, because you never know. You might have the skills to pull it off, and it might take some practice, and you might need to go and come down to the w3.org website and learn some new selectors. But all of that is just going to stretch you and make you a better web designer, make you a better coder. And also too, here's a website that you can go to that can give you some ideas of what is possible with CSS once you've mastered it. It's called CSS Zen Garden. Go by here and check this out. And the cool part about Zen Garden is there's all these different layouts that are uploaded by all these different designers, and I'm going to show you something here. Look at this next design. You can see this one here. Where's next design? Click next design. I clicked it. All right. Hey, that's the same one. Give me a second here. Let's see view all the designs here. Let's go there. And let's look at this one. Ooh, look at that. That's nice, right? I'm gonna blow your mind here in a second. Look at this. Very nice, right? Very nice layout. Make them proud. You got your little fixed position down here, so this everything kind of comes out of that. Pay very close attention to these layouts, and I'm going to show you something here at the end. Make them proud. Oh, look at that. That's cool, right? New one. Under the Sea. Let's check out another one here. Sakura. What's this one? Oh, that's nice. Very basic, but very nice, right? I'd be happy with that. Let's see. There's one I really like. One of them I really like. Ah, here it is. This is the Retro Theater. Okay. Come on, let's go. Retro Theater. Now this one's really cool. Look at that. So you see all this over here. This is all staying still. Meanwhile, this document is strolling up. And this is cascading style sheets. They're not using any JavaScript. That's one of the rules of CSS Zen Garden. There is no JavaScript involved in this. This is all CSS. And one other thing, if you read these rules, you'll notice that all the content for these is exactly the same. Because, look at this. The layout is exactly the same. The HTML code for every one of those designs that we just saw and we just looked at is the exact same HTML code and layout. Nothing is changed except for maybe this part here where the author's name might be in there. But all the rest of this is exactly the same. So when you talk about getting into the mastery of what is available here in CSS for you to do, this is what you're talking about. This, when I say mastery, this is what I mean, is that you can build a layout like this. This is the exact same code. Let me show you. Exact same code. And it actually, the author didn't even change. So this is the exact same code, and that's basically the rules. If you were to think up some beautiful layout that you wanted to make, you could submit it to Zen Garden and maybe you'll get yours published. So if you guys really want to master it, go to CSS Zen Garden, take a look at those layouts and look at everything that's there. Take a look at this HTML that's being used down here. Look at that. There's not a whole lot there. Let's go to, and don't forget to do this. Go over here and look at the HTML. Where's the HTML? Where's the CSS? I'm sorry. Where is, it's in the head. Where is it? Give me just a second here. Sorry about that. I'm not seeing. Oh, okay. Current style screen. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. The style is being used. See, this is an import, so they import the CSS sheet. That's why I couldn't find the link to it. But yeah, don't be afraid, like I said, to try something new. Look at all this. These are some really awesome sites that are available here at Zen Garden. Go take a look at that stuff. Use my tips to get better, practice, and know that you can do it. I really believe you can do it. Hit me up in the inbox if you have any questions. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a series, a brief series on mastering CSS. I think the basics are covered pretty well on YouTube. You can find other tutorials for that. But I want to go over using some more advanced selectors and properly arranging your XHTML. I want to do stuff that's not being done. You can find all kinds of tutorials on CSS. So thanks for viewing. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and have a great day.